أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد آل محمد وعجل فرجه وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. May everybody's acts of worship be accepted. It is great to see everyone here after Shahr Ramadan, fasting, worshiping God. And we have in the traditions and we have in the instructions that when a person asks for forgiveness and when a person worships Allah in a sincere way, that his sins are forgiven. And he is like a newborn baby, newborn child. So everyone here today has the opportunity to remain pure because Allah forgives. God is forgiving. And some of the traditions that we have is that just the fact that sometimes we do something and we hide it from others. Al-mustataru bil-sayyi'ah, a person that hides his bad, evil, maghfurun lah, is forgiven. Maybe not necessarily he even comes to God and says, forgive me. He's just ashamed. You don't have to read a lot of long du'as and a lot of salat and prayers for God to forgive you necessarily. Just the fact you hide it from others. You feel bad about it, God forgives you. But what we have in front of us is that how can we remain good? How can we remain pious? That's the difficult part. Say God forgives. Right now, we believe God has forgiven everyone in the Shahr Ramadan because that's what He does. A Lord, merciful God is the God that forgives. But what can we do to remain pure? That is what's important because the next day man will come to do that action again. So hopefully Eid is Mubarak upon all of you, but also tonight and today we have a 100-year anniversary of a horrible act that happened during our contemporary lifetime. Does anyone know what happened 100 years ago? That is the demolition of the graves, of the shrines of the family of the Prophet. See, when you look at the history of shrines, maybe you've known Shiism or followers of Al-Baqee to go to shrines. Not only is this for Shiism, Sunnis do this as well. They go to shrines, and we want to talk about this tonight, and they visit holy individuals. Sometimes these shrines are the shrines of prophets, like in the city of Al-Khalil. People that were prophets, and it's very interesting to know, for example, prophets Abraham. As you know, Abraham is an important prophet in Islam. Or Prophet Isaac, Ishaq, or Prophet Yaqub, or Prophet Joseph. These had tall buildings, and there were shrines or buildings around their graves. And when the Muslims conquered these areas, they never destroyed these shrines. Never destroyed the shrines of the prophets. So you have these prophets in Khalil. Even for our own Prophet, Rasulullah. You see from the beginning the very first step was to maybe build a wall. And then the Umayyads later on to build a shrine for Rasulullah. And the Abbasids, different rulers, they did this. So the Prophet of Islam had a shrine. So other prophets had shrines, the Prophet had a shrine. But why did the Wahhabis, and you know it was a movement that started around the 1800s, by a person by the name of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. And his goal and his encouragement by the British was to make sure that the powerful Ottoman Empire would not dominate all of the Middle East, which it was doing, and would not be a barrier from trade for the British and India. So they promoted this extremist sheikh that didn't represent Islam. And he gave orders, and his ideology was that it's obligatory to destroy the shrines, obligatory to destroy anything that's built on a grave. Imagine us, our heritage, our parents, our grandparents, they have a grave for them, right? It's part of remembrance. And God forbid someone would come and demolish their grave. How sad would we become? How angry would we become? So now you see that in 1800s, this fanatical group of Wahhabis, which is not even a strong scholar himself, he comes, and the first attack that they do, they first attack the shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Karbala. Imam Hussein is the third Imam in Shiism. After the Prophet of Islam, we believe in 12 Imams, 12 successors. So they come and destroy Karbala, the shrine of the grandchild. Even if they say those narrations are right, that you cannot build. But what gives you permission to destroy? Because destruction is equal to dishonoring. Who gives you permission to dishonor the grandson of the Prophet? And to destroy, and to take, and to loot. They say camels upon camels. Because the Wahhabis, they didn't have oil at that time. The Saudi government, there was no Saudi, the Saudis didn't have oil at that time. So they would be raiders, and their income was from raiding. And obviously one of the places that was gold and silver was where? The shrine of Imam Hussein. So they took gold and silver and raided and attacked Karbala in 1801. Then they came to the Imams of Baqee. And there was a big difference between the scholars of Najd, which are the Wahhabis, and the scholars of Hijaz, Arabia. In Hijaz, which is Medina region, is included in Hijaz, they sent a delegation to the scholars of Hijaz. And the Qadi, his name was Sulaiman bin Bulayhid, to Medina. The purpose of getting a fatwa from them. And when they saw this group of scholars, they told them this, that if you do not give the fatwa to destroy the shrines of Baqee, then you will be one of the mushrikeen and we'll have to kill you as well. So the scholars in Hijaz, they were forced. Even though, as we said, this is not a Shia Sunni thing. The Sunnis believe in shrines. As we said, when the Prophet's graves in Khalil in Palestine, they came to it, they were not destroyed. Or when you have, for example, today, or in other places, you have graves of some of the companions, like Talha and Zubayr, for example, you have their graves. Or you have graves of schools of jurisprudence, of Malik ibn Anas, for example. He also had a grave in Baqee. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, for example, in Baghdad. Shafi'i in Egypt, for example. Or Abu Hanifa in Baghdad. They all had mausoleums and shrines. So this was not the only thing for Ahlul Bayt. This was for the entire Muslim world. So they came and destroyed everything and leveled everything that was in Baqee. Which was what year? This was in the 1800s. This was the first destruction. And this is not the destruction that we're talking about. Then after that, we see that the Ottomans, the Ottomanis that we talked about, and they had a war with the Wahhabis. And they sent from the orders of Muhammad Ali Pasha and his son Ibrahim, the Ottomans, they're Sunnis. They came and they destroyed the Wahhabis in Hijaz, and they went and built the shrines that we have today, the pictures, not that we have today, the pictures that you see. Has anybody seen the pictures of Baqee cemetery of 100 years ago? And this event happened in Arabic calendar, it's 1444. This happened in 1344, the second, the destruction. Before this, though, did you see actually Turkish architecture? And that was because the Ottomans, many people think that the Shias built this that we have. It's actually the Sunnis. They built shrines for Imam Hassan, Imam Sajjad, Imam Baqir, and Imam Sadiq. And they had steel, you could look inside it, they had steel, and it had a shrine, and it had a dome. So they were at odds because one of the biggest enemies of the Wahhabis are the Hanafis. And they are completely different when they come to ideology because they believe, the Hanafis, they believe in ziyarat al-qubur. We're going to talk about ziyarat, visiting graves and asking God and tawassul and asking God. And these are questions for all religions. Can you ask God through someone? Or can you only ask God directly? Can I ask, for example, God, because of this prophet, because of this good, virtuous person, answer my prayers? So the Hanafis accept that as well. They even accept istighatha, what they call is directly saying, Ya Muhammad, Ya Ali, Ya Hassan. They allow that as well. The Hanafis. Just to mention, say, oh Jesus, right now, if I say Jesus, help me. But I don't believe in his divinity. I believe Jesus as a prophet of God, one who has honor, and I say, Isa ibn Maryam, help me, for example. This is allowed. This is in Quran. Quran, it says, Ya Abana, oh Father, seek forgiveness for us in the Quran. So we have that this was the final destruction, and 100 of years pass, and this marks 100 years that we are very hurt by this because it is part of our heritage, because we love Ahlul Bayt, we love Imam Hassan. We see every year how many people visit Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Karbala. That when you go to Baqee, your heart, you just can maybe only stand there for a little bit until they tell you go. You can't stay here anymore. They push you away or maybe arrest you. For why? For visiting the graves of Imam Hassan. They even came to destroy, the Wahhabis came to destroy the shrine of the Prophet. And then the Muslims did not allow this at all. Because if you allow for the Prophet, why would you allow for why wouldn't you allow for others? So this is the dilemma that we have today and the problem that we have, and we pray to God that inshallah somehow we will live in a time period that we will see these shrines reestablished. But the question at hand is, why are these shrines so important? Maybe one person will think, okay, visiting, that's good, but it's not necessarily that important. Why do we have so much emphasis in visitation? Inshallah, you can explain to our dear guests how many of followers of the Prophet go to Karbala every year. 20 million people come every year around for the 40th of the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. And it is recorded as the most peaceful gathering, annual gathering every year. Why? Why do we do this, you think? Why is it so important to do ziyarat, to visit them? We even believe in ziyarat from afar. We say, Assalamu alayka ya Abbas. We just did ziyarat Ashura. We said salam. Salam means peace. Peace upon you, Hussein ibn Ali. Because one thing, we believe in tawassul. We believe that you can connect to God through human beings. And this is the best way to connect to God. And this is something good. And I tell people, especially some that become Muslim, I tell them, don't lose that connection you have with Jesus. Of course, he's not God, because God cannot be human. God cannot have dimensions. God is not divisible. If you think God has time and space, that is not God anymore. That is the God of limitation. God cannot have any limitation. But call him, call his mother. Have that relationship. He's a prophet of Ulul Azm of God. Remember him. This is what we do. We're very alive in Shiism with our relationship with the prophets and their successors. We are very connected to them. That's something good. We cry for them. We are very happy in their joyous occasions. We talk to God through them. We read the du'as and prayers that they would read. So we have a very dynamic relationship with these perfect individuals, and that's how it should be, because this is how you strengthen your allegiance to them. One of the traditions that talks about ziyarat, and this is a hadith from Imam Rida alayhi salam, says, يَقُولُ إِنَّ لِكُلِّ إِمَامٍ أَحْدًا فِي أُنَقَ أَوْلِيَائِهِ وَشِيعَتِهِ. Every imam, there is an ahd, there is an allegiance upon the necks of his friends and his Shia. وَإِنَّ مِن تَمَامَ الْوَفَاءِ بِالْعَهْدِ. But if you want to be completely, you pledge your allegiance to the imams, pledge your allegiance to the Prophet, it says, وَحُسْنَ الْعَدَاءِ زِيَارَةُ قُبُورِهِمْ. But if you want to show that you're in the allegiance of the Prophet and his imams, then go and visit them. This is renewal of allegiance. When you visit Imam Hassan, Imam Sajjad, Imam Baqir, Imam Sadiq, the second Imam, the fourth Imam, the fifth Imam, the sixth Imam in Baqee, you are renewing your allegiance. So you are my Imam. Meaning what? Imamat for us has three characteristics that's different than others. When we believe someone is an Imam or successor, we say three things. One is that he is chosen by God, not by people. Because God knows who qualifies to be the Imam. People do not know. They can be fooled. As you see in elections, they choose the person that lies the most, is the most corrupt. They choose him. They say he's the best, for example. And he keeps lying and they keep voting for him. They keep supporting him, for example. The second, so they're chosen by God, because God knows who qualifies the most. The second, that he has knowledge from God. He knows the way. A successor, if Islam is the final religion, do you think the Prophet of Islam could explain everything in 23 years? There must be successors that have knowledge of the book, that have knowledge of rulings, knowledge of beliefs, that will teach the people to the day of judgment, if it's going to be the final religion. So they have two, knowledge of God, knowledge of the book. Three, they are infallible and they cannot make mistakes. So what are three characteristics of an imam? Chosen by God, knowledge of God, and three, infallibility. Because he cannot say something and contradict it. Because this is the final religion. So when you visit the imam, or when you visit the prophets, or when you visit righteous people, the first thing that you're doing about these divine guides is that you're saying, I'm pledging my allegiance to you. I want to live my life by your teachings. I don't want to live my life by this random philosopher, by my ego, by the media. I want you, holy divine guide, whoever it is. If it's the 12, imams, 11 imams that are buried, if it's the Prophet of Islam or other prophets that you visit, you say, look, I want you to govern my life. I want you to show me the way. That is what a divine guide does. He shows you the path. Sirat, as we have in the traditions, that the prophets, the Ahlul Bayt, the family, they are the Sirat, they are the path. In Islam, huwa taslim, Islam just means submission. If you want to come to know God, how can you know God? If you want to get close to God, how can you know Him? By having a human come and teach and guide and be able to show us the path. So therefore you see that imamat, or for example, believing in divine guides, it means that I want to live my life in a way that is governed by God, by divine guides. God, if He wanted to send just the Holy Quran without instructions, He could have. But He sent a prophet, so if people have questions, they can ask Him, so that He can judge, so that He can rule, and He can establish a government, and He can get, and those that are bothering and abusing the Muslims. He can protect them. So therefore God sent us a prophet. And then when the prophet leaves, he sent us imams that will guide us, inshallah. So in reality, when you really think of it, and you're using humans, never to worship humans. This is haram. Some people, they think the Shia, they say, you guys are worshiping. Worshiping is haram. It's not allowed. We don't worship Ahlul Bayt ever. Giving honor to them is something else, and worshiping is only worship Allah. We never have, even when you have those 2 units of prayer, what you do, you're giving a gift to the Imam. You're never worshiping the Imam. Or if somebody bows to them, or in the shrine, sometimes you say they come and kiss the ground. The reason for that is just because of respect. You can only, sujood is only for God, and ruku is only to God. But the best way to know God is through humans. That is, is a fine line. And I think, the way that Christians, or sometimes Muslims, and they took Ali alayhi for God, or they took Jesus to be God. There's a fine line with using the prophets to get close to God and worshiping them and thinking they're divine. Because Jesus alayhi salam would perform many miracles. He would cure the sick. He would give, this is in the Quran, he would give life to the dead. And anyone that would see this right now, imagine in front of us, some guy's dead. He's been dead for maybe, I don't know, now or a little bit. And then somebody, not me, somebody from this community, someone else, someone holy, comes and makes dua, and he's alive again. So, what happened? He was dead. You gave life to him. Only God can give life. Maybe it was someone that isn't really logical, so he's God, he's it. But then the logical person will say, look, God cannot be a human. God cannot be divisible, have dimensions, be limited to time and space. He is someone that God gave permission. In the Quran very beautifully about Jesus says he did all these. But with the permission of God. With God's permission. So therefore humans can have this power. But by whose permission? By God's permission. Can angels have this power? Yes or no? Yes. So why can't humans have this power? So what we focus on as followers of Ahlul Bayt is developing this relationship to God through these people, through their stories, through people that lived like us, and relating to them and reading about them and being encouraged and loving them. Because we can connect to humans better than any other species or anything else. You can know the tribulations that a human had and learn from it much better than anyone else. So one of the important things that we do, and demolition is so important for us, is hampering the ziyarat and visitation of Hassan ibn Ali, for example, the second imam. People going there, learning from him, who is he, what did he stand for, how did he live his life. He divided his wealth a few times. He divided with him and the poor. So this is for me, this is the poor, the rest. The patience of Hassan ibn Ali, the political mind that Imam Hassan had, the courage that Imam Hassan had in battle, the purity of Imam Hassan in the Quran. They're missing out on this. Therefore, when you block this path, you're blocking people towards God. Look at the narrations that talk about ziyarat. Another narration from Imam Qadim, this is from Imam Qadim Al-Kafi, mentions about ziyarat or visitation, that when you read here, it says, those that do ziyarat, فَيَقْعَدُ مَعَنَا مَنْ زَارَ قُبُورَ الْأَئِمَّةِ. They will be with us, they will sit with us, whoever visits them. You'll be at their position. Or it has, for example, مَنْ بَاتَ عِنْدَهُ لَيْلَ كَانَ كَمَنْ زَارَ اللَّهِ فِي عَرْشِهِ. If a person does ziyarat or spends the night, as if he has visited God in his throne. Obviously God does not have a throne because he doesn't have physical form. But if you visit these individuals, as if the narration says, you get to Tawheed, you get to the unity of Allah. Why is that? How come people are confused when they think that some make this, and it's very false. They say when you're doing ziyarah, you're doing shirk, polytheism. We say actually, when you do ziyarah, when you visit these holy individuals, that's a tawheed in the best form. Because these individuals stood up for tawheed. These individuals stood up for the oneness of God. Tawheed means the oneness of God. When you learn about them, they were the instructors. They told us and taught us that you can never see God with your eyes. You can see God with the heart, but you cannot even see God in the hereafter. But in the majority, a lot of the Muslims, they say you can see God in the hereafter. We say, how is that possible? They defined who God is and said God is not how Quran says, "Laysa kamithlihi shay." Nothing is like God. He is necessary existence. We are contingent existence. We are in need. He has no need whatsoever. So when you visit these holy individuals and mention their name, you're talking and visiting the instructors of Tawheed. Look at the Shia traditions about Tawheed. Look at the other narrations that exist about Tawheed. They say God has a face, just like we have a face. They even have traditions that say God created man in his own image. Just like in Christianity, they have narrations like that. Does God have an image that human beings look like him? No, he does not have an image. I think that the modern mind, the philosophical mind, as we progress and understand that more with an intellectual mind, we can understand more that God cannot be divisible, to have dimensions. God cannot have an image, because if that's a limit, then where is he? So therefore, these are the instructors of Tawheed, to visit the Prophet of Islam, visit the Imams of Baqee, visit the Imams. That is Tawheed itself. That is because you're respecting the divine guides, that like Imam Ali alayhi salam, when you come to visit him, when they ask, for example, in the middle of the battle about God, and people were wondering, what are you doing? He's the general, he's busy in battle, why are you asking him about God? And he mentions, I'm just paraphrasing, that this is why we're at war. This is why we're at war, because of God. Let him ask. So everything these individuals did was for God. They are Tawheed. If you want to see who is a true monotheist, who is a true muwahhid, it's them. So if you want to be a monotheist, and you want to take polytheism out of your heart, visit them. They're the teachers of Tawheed. That's why when you really think of it, ziyarat is nothing but a bridge. Visitation is wilayat, which is the authority of these holy individuals that takes you to God. And the traditions have bina urifallah, bina ubidallah. Through us God is known. Through us God is worshipped. They showed you, I want to worship God, how can I worship him? I want to perform a prayer, how can I perform this prayer? Imam Ali alayhi salam will teach you. Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq will teach you. The divine guides will teach you. I want to know what belief is correct about God, what belief is not correct. They will teach you. So visiting their shrines is the most tawheedi thing to do, because if you want to be a monotheist, you visit the people that are monotheists. And they didn't have any shirk or polytheism in their lives. They had nothing but God in their intentions. Nothing but God. The Quran says this about Ali ibn Abi Talib over and over. How many verses do we have about him? The Quran mentions that he sells himself for mardatullah, for the satisfaction of God. He sells him. How can you, what position did Ali alayhi salam reach? Did you say he sold himself for God's satisfaction? And the night of Mabid, when they came to kill the Prophet of Islam with different swords, with different groups, and he stayed in his place, knowing that he would be killed the next night, thinking that he would be killed at that night. And then the Quran verse comes that are those that sell themselves for God's satisfaction. So there is no problem whatsoever with visiting the shrines, building shrines. And I'm going to give you one evidence in the Holy Quran, and this is evidence that scholars use, is the story of the people of the cave. The people of the cave, companions of the cave, is a very interesting story. And from what I know, it's not only in Islam, it's also in other religions. You can look it up, companions of the cave. They're a group of young people that wanted to worship God, but were running away from the oppression of the government, from their king. So they went away. So the Quran mentions about them. So say salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى. They were youth who believed in their Lord, and we increased them in guidance. So this lesson number one from their story of these individuals that maybe around, I can't imagine, maybe 300, after, in the calendar that we have now, the Gregorian calendar, 300 around. And some say that the area they were in that cave was Turkey, possibly. So they ran away. They were looking to worship God. And they ran away. They went into a cave. And there they fell asleep. In the Quran, before I say that, وَرَبَطْنَا عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ إِذْ قَامُوا فَقَالُوا رَبُّنَا رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَن نَدْعُوا مِن دُونِهِ إِلَهًا لَقَدْ قُلْنَا إِذًا شَطَطًا. And we made firm their hearts when they stood up and said, this is the belief that these youth had, because society was against them, their ruler was against them. And they said, our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. Our Lord is of the creator of all of this. Never will we involve besides him any deity. You want to be polytheists? We don't want to be polytheists. We want to be monotheists. And our God is the creator of the heavens and earth. So we would have certainly spoken then in excess transgression. So they went against and spoke against their society, something that today, when youth today want to believe, they have to go against the culture that exists today. Just like if you want to be healthy, you have to go against the modern diet. If you want to be religious, you want to be spiritual, you have to go against the culture today, because the culture today is a materialistic culture. A culture today is an egotistic culture. A culture today is actually, in a way, calling you towards Satan. But the culture that we need to preserve in ourselves, the culture that we need to fight for, is a clean culture, a pure culture, a monotheistic culture, like the people of the cave. So they went and they became 309 years about, they fell asleep. Then it becomes time that we have different narration, we have different verse of Quran, that how the people wanted to remember them in Quran. In one group of people, they said they want to remember him this way. Quran says, فَقَالُوا ابْنُوا عَلَيْهِمْ بُنْيَانًا. Create and construct over them a structure. So this is clear evidence in Quran, a group of people of the cave, that they want to honor. And Quran says, people said, have a construction over them, bunyanan. Have a construction over them. So is it allowed to build on top of graves? According to this, very clear, yes. Because in Quran it's saying it's allowed. Bunyanan. Bana. Have a construction over them. Then another group says, قَالَ الَّذِينَ غَلَبُوا عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِمْ. You can see Surah Al-Kahf, verse 21. And those that they had, prevailed in the matter, they had qalaba, they prevailed in the matter, لَنَتَّخِذَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْجِدًا. We will surely take for ourselves over them a masjid. We'll place a masjid over them, and some of the traditions say they actually chose the second path. They built a masjid for the people, companions of the grave. So can we build a masjid, a place of ziyarat, for example, a place of worshiping God? Can we build constructions? Very clearly in the Quran, yes, you can. What? Verse again? 21. Surah Kahf, 21. Or else Allah would say in the Quran, that's wrong, because He's giving a story. And then Allah would say, well, that's wrong, that's shirk, that's polytheism, what are you doing? There'd be a sentence like they're lost or something like that. But Quran accepts, and this, relating a story and not saying anything is equal to acceptance. So this is the story of Ashab al-Kahf, that either bunyanan or masjidan, which is very clear that you do this. And this is logical. Look at everywhere in the world, that whenever you have a figure that has contributed to society, you don't erase them from history. You remember their names, you make streets over their names. They have monuments for them. They even put them on currency because society feels indebted to them, says, thank you very much. But today, if you go to Baqee and someone doesn't tell you this is the shrine of Imam Hassan, how would you know? This is the grave of Imam Hassan. How would you know? There's only a rock there. That's it. How else will you know? They're trying to make, lose the legacy and our heritage of the Imams. So hopefully this, presentation that we had shows us two things. One, the sadness that how can they do such a thing to the family of the Prophet? And when you see the narrators have shrines, the companions have shrines everywhere. Go and destroy your other. If you want to destroy shrines, go and destroy those if you can. Why are the shrines of the family of the Prophet? Why would you even try to destroy the Prophet's own shrine? Two, we learned that shrines are actually, there's no shirk or polytheism about it. It's actually Tawheed itself. It is the unity of God. Because their teachings is monotheism. Their lives were monotheism. And we do not worship them. We're just asking God because of their honor. Just like sometimes you ask your parents. Would anyone say, Dad, pray for me. Mom, pray for me. They say, that's shirk? That's polytheism? No. Say, you are my spiritual father. You are my prophet. God sent you to guide me. The traditions say our prophet is our father. Imam Ali is our father. So pray for me. Take care of me. We believe that the soul is the main part of our existence. The soul never gets annihilated. The soul is here. So therefore it doesn't matter if you visit them from far or away, the soul is metaphysical. That's one of the reasons we say that heaven and hell last forever, because that damage that you do or that reward you do to the soul will last forever, because it's this metaphysical. If you harm something that's metaphysical, is it going to last forever or not? Yes. So if you do something to your body, it will be temporary, but if you do something to your soul, it's everlasting. So because the souls of the prophets and imams and our souls are everlasting, and their souls have much more power over and dominion over this world, you can say salam to them, you can visit them, and it's very good to connect to them, because when you go there, that is where all the angels are descending, because we believe that humans can become a'la al-'illiyin. No creation can become as high as humans. No creation can become as high as humans. So when you're visiting them, you're visiting where the angels, mukhtalif al-malaika, where the angels are entering, ascending, and descending. And you get blessed when you visit them, and you're learning. That little child that goes there, later on he says, who's Imam Hassan? Who's Imam Hussein? He said, look, Imam Hussein is the person that sacrificed everything for God. 1 against 10,000, 1 against 30,000. He learns, they're teaching you monotheism. And we do not worship them, we respect them. Respect is different than worship. We never have one act in any of our books that say worship them. We say actually those that worship or think that the imams are God, they left Islam. We say this ourselves. They're not Muslim anymore. So hopefully we can live a time period where we can do the ziyarah and visitation of Hassan ibn Ali and Imam Zain al-Abidin and Imam Baqi and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and that they will be able to have, we can be worthy enough to have their intercession and their shafa'at, inshallah, in this world and the hereafter. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We're going to open up for Q&A.